Hey everyone, the Still Got It podcast is brought to you by Sutton Basketball Academy, where the next generation of hoopers are made. Whether you're just picking up a ball for the first time or chasing a college scholarship, our year-round academy trains boys and girls ages 5 through 18 to become peak performers, both on and off the court. At Sutton Basketball Academy, it's bigger than the game. We build skills, confidence, and character that will last a lifetime. Learn more at SuttonBasketballAcademy.com. Hey everyone, welcome to the Still Got It podcast, where we sit down with former college hoopers to relive their journey, from playground dreams to big-time college moments and beyond. Each episode, we dig into players' early days in the game, the recruiting process, that first taste of life in college, and the highs and lows of their playing career. We'll also look at what came after the final buzzer, life beyond basketball, and where the game has taken them since. I'm your host, Nick Sutton, and this is Still Got It. Real stories, honest reflections, and a deeper look at the game beyond the box score. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, be sure to like and subscribe. All right. So, Gene, if you could just kind of tell us a little bit more about, like, when you arrived, Duke wasn't like Duke yet. And so how fast did you realize that you were part of building, like, kind of the foundation of something historic with Coach K coming, you know, the end of Foster and then the start of Coach K?
Well, when it came to Bill, the thing was, I didn't know anything about the team. Like I said, the one person I knew that I saw was Tate Armstrong. And the game I saw, he broke his wrist. So he was out. I knew nothing about Gminski, Spinardi. I knew nothing about team. My English, like I said, my English teacher was the one that got me interested in Duke, if anything. But when I came down to visit, you know, I'm number one player. It's quite naturally they're gonna treat me a certain way, and that was good. Bill was he was a weird type of guy. He was like a Johnny Carson, cynical type of guy. And he was different than all the other coaches. And he would throw off base, and that's what intrigued me about him. You know, like I said, I think I mentioned before, he went and saw a game in the Barbarian League, and I had like 35 points, and all the coaches, Patino and all those guys, they came down and they would talk and say hello. He walked right past me and left. And I called it, and I said, that coach from Duke, they're not even good. He didn't even speak to me. So to make a long story, so I called, and he gets on the phone. He goes, real serious. He was like that. He said, well, I saw your game. I watched it. I looked, and I didn't think you were good enough for us. And he hung the phone up on my face. And I went in the kitchen. I said, Mom, are you kidding me? This guy, Duke, they suck. I mean, they're in last place. She says, don't worry, baby. And then Bob Winslow called me right back. He said, that's how coach is. So that really broke the ice for me liking him as a coach. So I'm saying the difference between him and Coach K. Coach came in, Coach was real young looking. I mean, he was young. He was vibrant. I don't think he really knew what he was getting himself into, but it was a great situation because he just came from West Point. And they didn't really have a good record that year. But he was really strong. You could feel his energy. And he said, we're going to do things. And he told me and Kenny, we had to, you know, he says that there's a line you guys cross. You know, men have to cross the line, blah, blah, blah. He says, and this one showed his comedic. He says, you guys have crossed the line, pissed on it, crapped on it, da, 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 da. And we're like, oh, damn. We're sitting in this chair first meeting, but he was being cynical. So I love that about coaches, and I could tell when it came to our team, and I'll make this quick, we just started winning. We got into a flow. We started winning, and we kept winning, and we kept winning, beating teams that they hadn't lost, and then we beat Carolina at Duke. That sent the message. And we just kept winning, and we just kept having more fun. I mean, we didn't care who scored. The defense, we had the best 2-3 defense with a 1-3-1. That was the best. So the winning just does something. When you win, it just does something to you, and the camaraderie was great.
That's all. Yeah, I mean, winning heals all is, you know, the old adage. So when you know, the first year earning respect in the ACC, was there like a welcome to the league moment that kind of showed that the ACC was different? Like, was there a particular school? Was it North Carolina, NC State, Maryland that you remember being the class of the league at the time?
Yeah, Maryland was strong. We had to play in Cole Fieldhouse, which was huge. You know, it was a huge gym. They had a big following, and we beat them in Maryland. That was a big win. That showed that we were good. And then we played Carolina And my first experience with Carolina, which I hated, was they flopped all the time. I never played basketball like that. I mean, and they would get the calls. I mean, they would step in, and the referees, and I didn't curse the referee, but I told him, I said, man, this is not basketball. He said, shut up and keep playing. I'm like, whoa. So then I had to adjust to that. You know, the league was strong, the Carolina flopping. Wake Forest had Rod Griffin. They had a good team, and we didn't back down from them. We beat them. So each time we had an adversity situation, a challenge, we met it and we overcame it. That's when we knew that we're part of it, that we were significant.
Yeah. And so the 77-78 team, it seemed like that was kind of the first, like, Duke is for real season. You had a Final Four run. Was there anything that changed? Was it talent? Was it confidence, leadership, culture? Was there anything that changed that season that kind of brought you over the hump to get to the Final Four?
Uh, I think that the biggest thing is what you see with the players now. The last two teams, the camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys, we just liked each other. We enjoyed coming to practice. That was like our safe haven, our love, and we just, I mean, and I watched it with Cooper Flagg's team, the team last year, and I've seen it with these guys. We just enjoyed practicing. We didn't really worry about the other team. We worried about what we had to do and how we were fixing and doing. So that was the biggest key for us. And we had, Mike was in the center. Spinarco was the two, and so we had each position covered, and then Kenny played his role. John Harrell was the point guard. He was the turnover to assist ratio was the best in the nation. So we had a nice camaraderie, and we didn't care. We were young kids. We didn't give excuse my French, a flying crap, about anybody else. And we just kept winning and kept winning and kept winning, and it became, for me, I never really lost except for 2 games in 3 years in my high school, and they were exhibition games. Uh, so I never got used to losing, and always found a way, even in tight games, that we win. So I never was adapted to feeling a loss.
Yeah. And you mentioned Mike Gminski, Duke jersey. His jersey's retired in the Raptors. What made him special? What made him different as a player?
Interesting. Mike was a big son. He could shoot. He had a good range from 15 feet, and then an amazing shot block. If he came in, Mike would block your shot. Because he's an offensive minded type of guy. Not like it looked like he was trying to shoot all the time, but he could put it in. Had a nice jump hook. Quiet. He was really quiet. He's like that little kid, that quiet kid. But he I was very fortunate. I'm telling you, I'm very fortunate to have a guy like him. I mean, I can pat myself on the back saying I brought the winning concept and all that, but to have a center like Mike was a blessing because he won the pin game for us
Yeah.
to get us Final Four. He made 2 major blocks. They were up 4 points with 2 minutes left in the game with no shot clock, and he made 2 major blocks that
Interesting.
got us there. So he's a special kind of guy, and he got his number retired the last game of his senior game against Clemson. So everybody kept saying, "We can't wait till yours next year. We could get your number retired." Da da da. Yeah, that didn't happen. But anyway, moving right along.
Yeah. So Duke ends up beating Philadelphia's own Villanova Wildcats in the Elite Eight and gets matched up against Digger Phelps and Notre Dame in the Final Four, which had multiple future NBA players, including Bill Laimbeer. There was bad blood as well because they kept recruiting you after you signed, apparently. So what was the team's mentality going into that Final Four in St. Louis?
The thing was, which is interesting, they were so arrogant. We caught them on the elevator and they just walked past us like we were like a piece of crap. And Kenny, Kenny was funny because Kenny would antagonize them, flash a moon in their face, all that kind of stuff. So and that made it fun. They had the arrogance that they felt they were going to beat us. We were just on a roll. Digger was a mess because he stayed on me all constantly. He would always say, "How you gonna go to Duke and not come to Notre Dame?" That's like comparing a Cadillac to a Volkswagen. I mean, it was he ambushed me in the Knights of Columbus tournament. He had Adrian Dantley, Kenny Brokoff after the game. Make a long story short, they get me in a corner and he's going at it like a used car salesman and da da da. And I'm like a kid, like sitting there, like like, oh my God, I hear this. And Bob Winslow, assistant coach, was in the corner. He was fuming, turned bright red. After I left from that, I walked past Bob Winslow. I winked at him and says, and then I basically tell him, don't worry about it. It's okay.
Wow.
So we couldn't wait to play there.
Yeah.
And we jumped out on them quick. We just got lackadaisical and they made a little comeback, but we should have blew them out.
Yeah. Well, then the national title game versus Kentucky, you guys had 3 players drop 20 or more, but Goose Givens drops 41. And so years later, does that feel like a crushing defeat still, or more like we kind of ran into a historic heater?
Yeah, we didn't make adjustments. Basketball's about adjustments. And we ran that 2-3 to 1-3-1. That's great. But we should have. Bill wasn't really great. Like K, they're two different things. K, when he came in, he was not playing any zone. He told us that. And we're going against Ralph Sampson, Sam Perkins, and we still played man. And we lost some games. So some coaches don't make those adjustments. In this game, we at the 2-3, we don't make the adjustments because they got Roby and Phillips, the 2 big guys. So Mike had to play the middle. He was worried about me and Kenny down there, but we didn't care. But Goose went to the gaps. He went to the certain gaps, like at the top of the free throw line, to the corner. He went to the gaps, and he got on fire, and we didn't make adjustments. And that was the biggest thing. I think the great thing about that was it doesn't crawl in me and my spirit too much because we played our hearts out, and we didn't realize we became men when we were down 12, and they took the starters out. And we got pissed off and says, man, these guys they're not all that good. They're veterans, though. And we made a comeback. We got it back, I think, to 3 or something like that. He put the starters back in. If you look at the game, he had to put the starters back in the game. And that's when we grew up and says we weren't kids anymore. It hurt. That hurt by being down by that many points to these guys, and we felt that we were better than them.
And so, what was the locker room like after the game? Was it, devastation, anger, where now you got a chip on your shoulder for next year? What was kind of the mood like?
You know what the mood really was? We were crying because the season was ending. It wasn't because we lost a championship.
Mm-hmm.
We were crying because we weren't going to be coming to practice the next day.
Right.
We weren't going to be around each other like we did next day. And and I got everybody's arm together. And when we went out, we walked out linked like a chain. And as we walked out on the court, it's emotional to this very. We walked out on the court, and all the fans, not just Duke fans, everybody, we'll be back, we'll be back, we'll be back. So that was a great feeling to have that run. It would have been awesome to top it off like it would have done, but it didn't. And we became more loved by the country, not just by Duke fans, but by the country, because that we were young and they saw us, and that was a good feeling.
What a cool story. Yeah. And so after the game, if we're not mistaken, you learned that Duke had received a death threat against you and maybe kept it from you until afterward. What did that do to your sense of safety and your trust, in that moment?
I didn't know much about it. Everybody else knew about it. They had a police person around my mom and dad up in the stands. There was a cop that was following me, and sometime with Kenny with me. We didn't recognize. We figured that's what they do in the NCAAs. You have protection around you, especially around the team, which they did. But I had it was a guy. It was always a cop following right a few steps behind me. I knew nothing about it. And then when I was told about it, I just said, I grew up in Philly, so I elbowed a guy one time. He ran home and he got a gun and he chased me all the way home one time. So that stuff doesn't really scare me, and I'm sorry that they felt that they needed to come at me like that for a person's life. But I kind of shrugged it off. I wasn't really scared. The only thing that bothered me was the fact that I was worried for the fact that it got to that point where my mom and dad had to be watching, and then they were watching me like, the world is interesting.
Right.
it's for a basketball game.
Yeah. So then moving forward to the next year, you win another ACC title after your junior season, and then Bill Foster leaves for South Carolina, and then Duke hires Mike Krzyzewski from Army, which as we've kind of hinted at, wasn't a splashy hire at the time. But what was your honest first impression? I mean, you mentioned that he looked young and was vibrant, but yeah, if you could go into a little bit more about kind of those first few days, few weeks of what your impression was of Coach K.
Well,
Also,
the whole thing
sorry,
was
sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
Just before, like, you guys had won the ACC that year. You had a great season, and then Foster's leaving. Like, were you guys like? Did you feel betrayed? Was it like, why are you walking out, Coach? Like, what was the thoughts on that too?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say it because here's the thing: when all that stuff, Foster and Butters fought all the time about stupid stuff. You know, it was always constant. We heard them. When Bill finally decided to tell us that, it was right before the ACC tournament was going to start.
Wow.
He took us out. He met us all individually, and shared it. My dad this very day has a dislike for Bill, but Bill's passed now, and also a little bit about Duke because he says he should have stayed until you left because you had a chance to leave uh, my sophomore year, which was not a good year, but I could have left my sophomore year, and then I could have left before K came, and I just had the press. I was just playing with the press, you know. It's just, I may not come back and da 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 da. And they put together this big press conference, and I had a suit on, a tie on, but I was just playing with the media. I was going to come back, but we knew nothing about the hire. Butters never said anything to us. That was only the most depressing thing was that here your two captains, me and Kenny, were coming back and they didn't mention it. All we read was what's in the press. And we thought Tom Davis, who was at Iowa, was the front runner, Dr. Tom Davis. But other than that, no one talked about it. No, we knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it until I was home in the kitchen and it came on the 6 o'clock news that Duke has a new coach, and the guy who said, I can't even pronounce his name, but we just gonna call him K. And me and my mom, we looked at each other like, and then Kay called us, I think, the very next day and asked us, because Kenny and I took an extra week off. So Kenny was down, he's laying out. I was in Philly. Uh, it was like no one said anything to us about it. No one talked to us about it. The press didn't even mention anything about it. And we just got away from it. And it wasn't distracting. It was that we were just in the blind. We knew nothing about it. But then we met Kay. We finally came in and sat down. Kenny came in, shirt off, sort of, cut out jeans, looked like he had been to the beach. So that was a first first impression with Kay, sitting there, no shoes on, you know, basically half naked, and I'm sitting there, and we didn't know what to expect. And he looked young, but he was our coach, and didn't matter where he came from, how he came from, and that was the first time we saw in his office he had changed the dynamics of the jersey. He had the jersey where you see how the pants are, the bars and things. He had it sitting on the back of his desk, and he showed us that he was going to change the whole dynamic of the uniform. And that was later on I learned that was impressive. That was impressive.
Interesting. So was there a moment, maybe a time in practice, maybe a team meeting or anything where you kind of got to see a glimpse of what made Coach K different and what ultimately started his, Hall of Fame career? Was there a moment where it kind of was like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy, he knows what he's talking about?
Yeah, well, the funniest thing was that he was trying his best to show he wasn't Bobby Knight, because that was the whole thing. He was a Bobby Knight disciple, blah, blah, blah. So he was going through his food, but he was really hard on the freshmen, the young guys, and I think one time in practice, he stopped practice and he yelled and he pointed to me and he goes, you see this guy? He's all ACC. He's the best. I want him to have the ball. Blah, 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 blah. You guards out here playing with it, jacking around with it. And I was like, cool. I was getting the ball anyway. I was getting the ball, but I was like, okay, yeah, I like that. That was one moment. The biggest moment I can say that really impressed me, we were going to play Maryland at Duke. It was on national TV. And Maryland was bomb squad. And before the game, we actually saw him be, if you would say, Bobby Knight. And he's revved up. This is pregame, sitting in the locker room, small room, and he's going nuts. I want warriors. I want soldiers. Da, 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 da. He's going, and this is pregame. We're looking, he's like, okay, wow. And he's revved. We haven't seen him like that. And he's revved up and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And he says, are you with me? Da da da. And he walks out, and we're sitting there going, oh damn, now Bobby Knight's coming out. But we were mystified. We just sat there and was like, we didn't know what to think of it. And he came, opened the door back up, and he stuck his head and said, God damn it, do I have soldiers or not? And everybody went and looked, yeah! We go nuts. I mean, we go nuts. We go out, we go to warm-up line. I mean, that's when I saw his power. We win this game, 54-53. You know, we win this game, beat them. And that's when I went back, I says, he won this game for us. He got us going. And then there was another game against NC State. He put me on the point. Everybody saw that they called the Pentagon, where it looks like the teams are up in the top, and it looks like it's a stall, but it's not a stall. It's moving the ball around. And he put me on the point of this game at State. And he trusted me to be able to move the ball around. And if I got a break to go one-on-one, take it, but bring it back out. And that spoke volume of trust. You know, he had to have trust. He trusted me for this game, and I controlled the game to a certain degree of doing it. And we win it. That was his first ACC against Valvano. So that showed me I'm like, wow, you know, that was innovative. He put me on a point on that. So
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Well, now we got to talk about the UNC shot, Cameron immortality. Senior year is kind of going rough, but then your final game in Cameron, you know, the game-tying shot off of a tough inbounds to force OT versus UNC, and Coach gets his first win ever versus Carolina. So all these years later, was it the shot or was it the pass?
Both.
Both.
And the thing that people don't say, they give Kenny and I credit, but we never talked about it. Coach calls a time. The great thing about it, we got to give Coach credit because the way he managed the game. And then Dean Smith gave us an additive, an advantage. He called a timeout after Sam made the first shot. Okay, he called a timeout, so they gave us one. Then Coach came up with this idea, says, okay, what we'll do is take the ball from there and then throw it to half court and call another timeout. So Dean left us an extra timeout, so it goes down to 1 second. There was right up this play. He wants to run this play with Vince getting Chip open up there. They bump into each other. But the funniest thing, said, Gene, if you get a chance, just try, if it goes up, tap it in. I'm at the box. Kenny now, when he's making his play up, we just looked at each other like this. We didn't say anything. We just looked at each other. It's like twins knowing what or who they are. And we didn't say anything. We go out. I go down to the box. Kenny's taking the ball out. Kenny's looking like a mid-court range. And he never even looked at me or signaled to me. I decided to just break it and just come up to the top. I don't know. It was just, you want to call it divine intervention? I don't know. I'm come up to the side, and Kenny even looked at me. He threw the pass. He didn't throw it right at me. He threw it where in motion as I was circling around, coming around. I got it, and it was catching it where the ball's flowing, and I was able to catch it and move in rhythm and go up. And Sam hesitated, but Sam came up. He said, Sam to his face, he says, I felt my fingertips on that ball. And I caught it, and it was just like, I just felt I couldn't be denied, not in this game. And it hit number rock bottom, you know. And then once we got that, we sat in, and Kenny and I, we didn't say anything. We just bumped heads each other. It was like, you know, kindred spirits. And I just said to him, I says, we are not losing this game. We're not losing this game. And I get to hit I hit the shot that crazy rebound and go ahead and we win this game. But so Kay has to get credit. Besides, they give it Kenny and I, they don't give it to, but we take the credit for the shot, but the play, because we just broke the play. But Kay did a lot of pieces during this game to keep us like that, because I think they were second or third in the nation at the time.
Yeah. So where does that moment rank in your career and your life? Does it crack top 5, top 3?
Oh, big time. I mean, it's the last game in Cameron. I come out throwing roses, you know, before the game. You know, it was monumental, and it's against Carolina, and then we win the game. So that's really that game, the game against Maryland in the ACC tournament, top. It ranks up top because we were told that we were going to lose in the first round, and we went through that one. So that would have to be one of the tops because of the Cameron situation and Duke, and it was you never heard a place ever so loud before in your life. It was magical, I mean, and I thank God to this very day for that. I really do. When it comes to the divine intervention, I thank Him for giving me that because I went to the chapel the night before and I just I sat there and I was looking up. And I was like, God, please be with us. I do not want to we don't want to get embarrassed.
Yeah, they were great that year. The first game they beat you
I mean,
guys
I'm
pretty
sitting
good.
there, and this is not like no big size. The chapel's always open at certain times, and I just had to sit there and ponder because it was my last game, and I was just thinking about all the things, just sitting there, and I just was like, God, please don't let it be embarrassing for the game tomorrow. So I said, please just be with us. I swear, I'm not lying. And I left out of there. So you heard my prayer.
Oh,
For
yeah.
real.
So as we wrap up kind of your college career, after you left, Kay he becomes the guy, but a little two-part question to kind of close the chapter on your college. Were you surprised? I mean, you obviously got to see the makings of what Coach K ultimately became, but were there other examples or like seeds of greatness that you saw that maybe most people didn't? So that's one question. And then also, what's one Coach K trait that you learned as a player that helped you most as a pro?
Well, one of the things I saw, I think the one thing I liked about him it was family. He had the family around him. I saw Debbie when she was like 9 years old, and the way him and Mickey interchanged, that was a nice thing to see around the team. That was the family thing was major. I watched that about him. He really loved his family a lot, and he had them around through these beginning. This was the beginning times of things. I love that about him. The other thing was his tenacity of details. He was always being detailed over getting this thing done, and making us be understanding about we're collectively in this to have responsibilities of each one, and we have to carry that responsibility and being able to have those trusts with each other. So I saw those about him, and and he admitted, he said he didn't know how to coach elite players, because he was at Army. He said, you, Kenny, and Vince, especially you, were an elite player. And I was trying to learn how to do that. I didn't know how to do that then. And I was like Scooby-Doo. Oh, okay. So I thought he did a very good job being under the pressure he was. And think about it. We won 17 games without having a center, without having recruits come. We only had one recruit coming, Doug McNeely. So we had a team that he inherited a bunch of ragtag guys coming back, and he picked and molded these things with everything he knew, with everything he had starting out. And we lost maybe 3 or 4 games where we could have won 20 games. Think about that for a first-year coach.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think about that. When we were 17 and 13, I think it was, but 3 or 4 of those games, you're looking at 21 and 10 or 9. Think about that. People don't even think about that his first year. So I was very impressed, and there was a lot of adjustment. So I like that about him. And the only thing I regret, and I'll end it with that one, I regret that I didn't have another year with him. Because he helped me also prepare for the pros, because we played man to man. So he prepared me for the pros. He didn't make it, but he made sure that here I win the ACC scoring title, and that's against Ralph and Sam Worthy and Albert King. So he put, like he did Christian and Grant, he put that pressure on me to deliver what I need to do for us to win the game.
Next time on Still Got It.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And then I get traded to the Bulls, and here I go with Michael Jordan. And, I got Doc one night, I got Bird the next night, I got Malone the next night, I got Barkley the next night, I got Dominique. It was a slew.